Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with the love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? Hello? Hello?
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo News. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness, or at least that's usually what it is. But today is not going to be that. So when this week started off, it was very much my plan to do a normal Zoo News episode. And then it was my plan to change that to doing a mini deep dives episode. And then life just kind of kept happening. And so now the official plan is this is going to be a bit of a rambling mess. No, I'm kidding. But this is going to be less structured than most of my episodes. And that is because I want to share some stuff that I've been thinking about this week, kind of just life stuff. You'll get where I'm coming from. And then I also want to do at least one deep dive into a topic, and I'm not sure how long it's all going to take. So yeah, I'm just gonna start to talk about some things, and honestly, we'll see where it goes from there. But so the first thing that I want to talk about is, as y'all know, this week I have been in the second week of playing a tribute to Dolly Parton. And as I'm guessing you all know, because you have that thing called the internet, Dolly Parton passed away this week. And it definitely has me up in my feels more than a lot of celebrity losses do, which is kind of funny because honestly, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not the hugest country music fan. A lot of the songs that I'm playing in the show, I heard for the first time when I learned them to play them in the show. So, yeah, I was shocked at how rocked I was by this. But I will say one thing about me is, despite the fact that I am just a drummer, and I'm putting the word just in the biggest air quotes, I take tribute type work and concerts focusing on people's music and stuff very seriously. And I tend to study the music and the artist in general and really try to get in there and just, I think it's important to be as authentic as possible. And that includes getting to know the artist at some level. And so I've been very immersed in Dolly Parton this week and last week and last couple of weeks, really. And then on top of that, Karen Hester, who is playing Dolly in this tribute, is just fantastic. Easily considered the best Dolly impersonator, approved by Dolly Parton, has met Dolly and such. And I know I talked about it a little bit last week, so I don't want to completely repeat myself, but just it's interesting because I play so many of these types of shows, and it's fun, and it's honestly very important to me to keep the legacy of certain music alive, and something I think I do very effectively and I'm very proud of. But it's very rare that I feel like I'm actually playing with the person. You know, if I'm out there and like my buddy Taylor or Jason, both of whom you've heard on this podcast, are doing their Jerry Lee things, I'm having a lot of fun. And it sounds like I'm playing with really talented musicians and we're playing that music, but I don't sit there and think, holy cow, it feels like I'm playing with Jerry Lee Lewis. But there are very few artists that I've worked with where that is what it feels like. And Karen is the epitome of that. I am sharing the stage with Dolly Parton every night. And so that's been extra challenging, to go through that. And then on top of that, we actually got the call to places, meaning it's time to start the show. And we all went out to our instruments. And Karen wasn't there on, I guess this was Tuesday. And Karen is the utmost pro. And we were all like, where's Karen? And then our background vocalist for the gig came like running out on stage and went, Dolly died. And I was like, what? And she's like, Dolly died. And I was like the real one? And she's like, yes. And I was like, oh, crap. And so, Karen has spent 16 years of her life living in this person's shoes, literally. And it was very hard on her. And Dolly has always been a big proponent of the whole the show must go on attitude. And so there was never really a question of canceling the show or anything like that. But what a ride. And actually, thanks to the timing of it, everybody already had their phones off and were listening to like a curtain speech and stuff when we found out. So Karen actually informed the audience that Dolly had passed away, which was fascinating to be a part of that. And so I want to share all of that just because I want to share the emotion and kind of weird experience that I've been going through with this. As a matter of fact, this is the second time that I have been on stage when an artist died when I was doing a tribute to them. The first time that it happened was actually when the drummer W.S. Fluke Holland passed away, who was Johnny Cash's drummer, and who was the drummer that was there the night of the $1 Million Quartet. And as most of you guys know, that is a musical that I play a lot, and I portray Fluke. So I found out that Fluke died, and Fluke had become a friend of mine. I'd hung out at his house. We had gotten to know each other, through multiple times hanging out and stuff. And I found out he died and then went and played him that night. So I actually kind of know what Karen was feeling, and it's very weird. It's also feels really weird that has happened to me twice now. But at least I wasn't playing Dolly. No one wants me to play Dolly. But the crazy thing about it is, you're up there and you're playing this music and it's so surreal, and Karen spending her time talking, being Dolly, but then also talking about Dolly and her experience of sharing her music and stuff. And that's such a weird tribute. But then outside of that, and the thing that really got me thinking and wanting me to do kind of a ramble here at the beginning of this is that I saw so many tributes to Dolly Parton. There were all of the famous ones. There were some really amazing ones that just amazing in terms of artists that you wouldn't think that were affected by her. Pitbull stopped his concert and did a tribute to her and talked about the fact that she lifted him up. Eminem posted a message that she had sent to him. Just artists that you wouldn't necessarily draw a straight line between Dolly Parton and Pitbull or Eminem, But the lives that she touched in the celebrity world were incredible. But then outside of that, just the lives that she touched with her Imagination Library, which, if you don't know, was one of her favorite charities and was a thing where she gave away books to young children. Her father never learned to read, and so she set up this incredible charity in his honor, and something like 350 million books went out to pre-kindergartner readers. And when you graduated from the program, because you were about to start kindergarten, you got a special book, and it had a message from Dolly in it. And it was something she took very seriously, and that will go on, it's a part of her legacy that will live on, and that's just incredible. But the other thing that stood out to me was that whether it was the celebrity or the individuals, so many artists that I've worked with, so many people in my industry were touched by this person. Almost none of the tributes mentioned her music, or if they did, it was like the third thing listed. They talked about her attitude, her love, her support of the LGBTQIA community, her support of literacy with the Imagination Library, and just the way that she touched people on like an incredible individual level and made people feel seen and loved and appreciated. There was this amazing conversation between Siskel and Ebert when they both interviewed her, where they felt that they had like met an ethereal being, had like encountered something that they had never encountered before. And in all their years, they never felt that again with another celebrity. And these are people who, you know, interviewed celebrities all the time. Dolly was truly special, and it feels really special to be able to help carry on her legacy in the show I'm doing now and in future shows with Karen. But more than that, it's made me think a lot about how I've looked at my own life. And so I've been very open and honest about the fact that I am a musician. You know, I've come to this conservation world and to this podcast world and the zoo world and all the things through my music. And my music is still what pays the mortgage and all of those things. But I've been, I don't know if struggling is the right word, but I've been confused, I guess, about the fact that my priorities have been changing, because that was my goal literally since sixth grade. And it was the one focus of everything in my life. And then obviously things started to change, and, you know, being a good dad seemed important. And so I worked on that, and then all this conservation stuff came along, and that's been important. And there are some things that I can't tell you yet that I'll be announcing in the next week or two that are going to even kind of take that to the next level. And I'm so excited about all of it, and I'm so thrilled, but also it's scary to have such a change in direction. And then I look at Dolly, and I look at all the good that she was able to do. And I look at the fact that even though she was one of the most famous songwriters ever, and has written some of the best hits ever, and, you know, music, yay, that's not what she's actually remembered for, even by the music community. And I've been chewing on that a lot this week and what that means for me. I don't have an answer yet, but I think that's pretty amazing. And I think it's just me being one of, like, you know, 9 bajillion people that that woman influenced and helped and made think and touched in some way, even if you're not the world's biggest country music fan. Although do not sleep on 9 to 5. Or Jolene. Those are some great songs. But yeah, so that was my very rambly thoughts on Dolly and the fact that I was standing on stage in a cowboy shirt. Have I told you guys that I'm wearing this cowboy shirt? I might need to post some pics. But yeah, and found out that the icon that I was playing for, you know, a tribute of, had passed away. And I do, you know, in my own, I like to joke about things. You guys know that. And I will say that I had actually made a joke before this that, you know, I hoped Dolly would make it through the run, because when people ask me what I do, one of my favorite things to say is that I play drums with dead people, because I do all of these tribute type shows. You know, taking on both Billy Joel and Dolly this year, and then Dolly didn't make it out, and I know Billy's having a lot of health issues, so maybe I shouldn't go down that road. Maybe I shouldn't say it that way anymore. I don't know. But yeah. So those are my thoughts on Dolly, and now we can get to some other Zunizi type things. And actually, well, let me play the song first. All right, so this is technically a tag on the end of the thing I was saying about Dolly, but it's a different Dolly, but it might not be a Dolly, but anyway, I wanted to share with y'all that Lehigh Valley Zoo has a common eland that was just born, and they're having voting to name it. And one of the names is Dolly, and I want Dolly to win. And not that anyone at the zoo would put their finger on the scale, of course, but rumor is that I'm not the only person in the world that wants Dolly to win. And the cool thing about this is you can just vote on social media. You don't have to go register. You don't have to do anything. So go check out Lehigh Valley Zoo's post about this. And there's you vote by emoji, and it's like a pink heart with a yellow sparkle on it. And that is how you vote for Dolly. So please, 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 please go vote for Dolly. Okay. So the deep dive that I wanted to start with this week, and we'll see where we go from there. But I don't know if you saw this. It actually comes from the conservation world, not from the zoo world. But it's a doozy, y'all. There has been unprecedented flooding along the Chinese-Nepali border. And so we're gonna talk about that. And before we get to the non-human animal stuff, I do have to start off by discussing how this is affecting the humans in the area. So as of this recording, 389 people have been declared dead from the disaster, and more than 1,300 people are missing following the flooding, with rescuers desperately trying to get to them and find them, but there's terrible weather and damage and ground conditions and just all these things that are complicating matters. And so of the 1,300 missing, around 700 are actually not local to the area, including dozens of Americans that are amongst those missing. And I mention those facts because that's how it's being reported. But, honestly, sometimes it frustrates me that the media needs to look at it that way. I'm in the United States, but I don't think that dozens of missing Americans makes this any more or less of a tragedy than I do that just 1,300 total people are missing, along with almost 400 deaths. But, I digress. The point is, and this is a major catastrophe. And it's very likely the numbers will get worse as we find out more about what has happened. Now, obviously, with my involvement with Safe Red Panda and our conservation partners, Red Panda Network, I was very concerned about the people that we work with. And so, fortunately, the area where Red Panda Network is headquartered was not affected by the flooding directly. And most of the team does not have family or anything that were impacted, though one member of the team does. And so he's on his way back to Kathmandu to take care of his family and figure out what's going on and all those things. And I just want to pause for a minute and wish him the best of luck with all of that. And then, it's interesting because I've gotten over the years to spend lots of time on Zoom and even in person at Asia Midyear with members of the Nepali team. And it just makes this feel so much more real, I guess, and maybe that's why each country is kind of reporting it as 1,300 missing and X number from that country. But yeah, I'm just so glad that the team overall is okay. And that, like I said, most of them are completely unaffected. So that's really great news for a team in a country where there has been political unrest and there has been unprecedented bad weather and all kinds of stuff. They deserve the break. So I'm glad that most of them are unaffected. But of course, me being me and this being the podcast that it is, I'm not going to lie. My first thoughts when I heard about this weren't about the human life, but were about the animals that live in the area. So this is the border, like I said, of Nepal and China. And if you know things about red pandas, you know that the Fulgens and Styani are the two species of red panda, and they're more commonly known as the Nepali and the Chinese red panda. So this is an area of great interest to red panda conservation. Specifically, this is a border where a lot of red pandas live, an area where the two species of red panda actually come pretty close to each other. And along with the red pandas, it's also home to snow leopards and pangolins and lots of other animals that conservationists have a vested interest in protecting. And to be completely honest, it will be a very long time probably until we can fully understand the impact that this flood has had on these animal populations. And I'm looking at my notes as I wrote this, and I said, when I wrote it, I said, the impact, if any, that this flood has had on the populations. And that's, oh, sweet summer child, innocent John writing this. Of course, even one loss to an endangered species is a big deal. So obviously there will be, I'm just entertained by the fact that I said, if any, because I was being very optimistic a couple hours ago. So looking at it purely from a red panda perspective, I do know that red pandas are in the area in general. I do know that at least some of the animals that Red Panda Network has done with collar tracking back in the day were tracked in the area that has been affected by the flooding. But I'm not 100% sure of how much overlap there is. The good news is that, from what I can tell, and honestly, I have to be super clear, I have been piecing together what I can from good news sources, but weirdly enough, the general media out there is more concerned with the human aspect of this than the potential red panda aspect of it, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, from what I've been able to piece together, a lot of the damage is in areas that would be considered lower than where you would expect to see a ton of red pandas. They like being high up in the mountains. So I'm crossing all the fingers and toes and pseudo thumbs that this will have a minimal effect on the overall red panda population. And of course, that leads to the question of what caused this flooding situation. Well, not all experts are fully committed to this explanation yet, but it certainly looks like, you guessed it, humans did this. Shocker, I know. Not directly per se, but y'all know how that whole human-caused climate change thing is caused by humans? Well, the U.S. Geological Survey is putting the blame on glacial collapse caused by increased glacial melting due to the global warming caused by climate change. It looks like the glacier in question melted down to the point that a large portion broke off, rushing down a mountainside, causing it to melt faster as it goes and leading to a full-on landslide and flood behind this big piece of glacier that came crashing down. So, yeah, not ideal. And you know, it's one of those things where you kind of have to wonder sometimes if we're going to have a lot more stuff like this before the climate change situation is taken seriously by everyone, especially looking at you, AI data centers. So yeah, this is the breaking news from Nepal and China, and there's not much more information than what I've given you so far, but this is one really worth keeping an eye on. And I'm actually curious, for those of you that like to be in touch with me when you listen to episodes, have you heard about the flooding? Have you heard about it in relation to red pandas? Have you thought about it in that way at all? I'm curious because honestly, I've talked to some people, granted they're not in the zoo conservation-y type world, but I've talked to some people about it and gotten blank stares. You know, the focus seems to be on Dolly and Tim Curry, and apparently we've renamed Lake Ontario Lake America, which changes the Great Lakes from homes to shame, and I'm just gonna leave that there. But yeah, sometimes I feel like global news gets lost, so I wanted to make sure that I went deep on this one with y'all. And then I guess there are two other stories that I want to kind of talk about. One is quick and one is semi-quick. And the first one of those is that one of the belugas that was taken from Marineland in Canada to Shed Aquarium has passed away. And we talked about this move on the podcast repeatedly. So Canada basically banned all cetaceans being in human care there, and then didn't really do anything about it. they were like, haha, no more orcas, no more belugas, no more dolphins. And those of you that have them, figure it out. And that led to Marineland, a park that was already struggling and maybe wasn't the best, to have to close down, but still take care of some of their animals, including belugas. And that's just not ideal. You need money to take care of animals. And so this big rescue operation happened with Shed Aquarium and the Georgia Aquarium, and I think SeaWorld's involved, a couple other facilities. And these belugas have been moved out. Some of them, some are still getting moved out. I think there was actually movement yesterday, if you're listening to this on the day it dropped. And so things are happening and steps are being taken to make things better. And yay, but also, too little, too late. And the government wasn't really very helpful with a lot of this. They fixed the problem by outlawing cetaceans and then let everyone figure it out. And so now one of the belugas, like I said, has passed away. And there is real concern that these animals just weren't ready to be transported or weren't living in good enough conditions, and that this will end up being kind of, I don't want to say as far as like another Sloth World type thing, but definitely could be something like that, The beluga in question was named Pikachu, spelled P-E-E-K, not like the Pokemon, and was one of 8 of the beluga whales that made it to Shed from Marineland. So, yeah, just another thing to keep an eye on, and sorry that all of these are kind of bummery. But yeah, it's something I wanted to mention, and something we're really going to have to see what happens with these Marineland cetaceans, and also serves as a reminder that, sometimes you can't just legislate something away. And then once you've signed the bill, or whatever Canadians have, I assume it's a bill, just assume that you fixed everything. And then the third thing that I wanted to talk about was that this week there were 2 different instances, and they are very different stories, but 2 different instances of people getting into animal habitats at zoos. One of them was a severely autistic child who went in with some hornbills at the Milwaukee County Zoo and was shown chasing them, and I think even picked up a stick, and I believe it was his grandmother jumped in and got him out of there. And then the other one involved a person climbing into a big cat habitat at the St. Louis Zoo, neither of which are particularly great. And so the fact that those things both happened this week have put a lot of focus on I guess you would say, the responsibility of zoos to protect both their guests and their animals by not letting people get into these habitats. And it's interesting because so many people always push to have as much open viewing as possible and as little netting and caging and bars and all the things. And I get it. And yeah, it looks really nice. And there are arguments for and against that from the welfare of animals that I'm simply not going to dive into right now, but we can talk about that in a future episode. But, if reasonable barriers aren't enough to keep people out of habitats, then the question becomes, what's necessary? What do you have to do? How do you close these off? Is there a way to do it to ensure that people don't get in? Is there a way to do that without then also making it so that the animals can't be outside, can't see things other than through glass? Like, what is the line? And so I think, this is a great reminder that zoos have their security numbers available online. And if you see something you should say something. I am a big proponent of telling people if you see somebody slamming the glass or, putting their kid on the wrong side of a barrier to just sit there while holding them or whatever. I know it can be uncomfortable, but it's really important that we, as the zoo community, that we don't allow that when we see it, and that we talk to people about it and we address it. And I know it can be scary, and I know it can be tough. And I know I love going to the zoo and putting in my noise canceling headphones and ignoring the world sometimes and just seeing animals. But we're going to hope that these two things were just flukes. They were clearly unrelated, but, yeah, if this becomes a story, then it just becomes another thing in the anti-zoo campaign. It becomes another challenge for facilities. It could become a financially challenging thing when these things happen, if there are lawsuits or whatever. So I just think it's something that we need to be really aware of. And as good zoo guests, we need to step up and help these zoos in these situations. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. And I know this has been a really weird episode, but you know what? I'm a really weird guy, so I'm okay with it. But don't worry, before we go, we are still going to have
Animal holidays. Animal holidays.
All right, so it is still August, which is Asian Elephant Awareness Month, National Catfish Month, National Parks Month, and August is for Antelope Month. And then for your individual days that are left in this month, well, there's one of them. The 30th is International Whale Shark Day. And then that brings us to September, which is Save the Tiger Month and Save the Koala Month. And on the 1st, it is International Primate Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News. And before we get going, I do want to say a couple thank yous to my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And then I want to thank everyone who's contributed stories these last couple weeks, including, and no, Matt Patford. I'm not actually going to sing all of this as we didn't start the fire. Anya Keene, Colleen Linehan, Ken Cooley Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Dr. Natalie Taco, Andrew King, Justin Fairchild, Jessica Cordell, Tatum Flores, Justin Williams, Tran Hanton, Dr. Laura Shank, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, Melissa Reed, Ren Howell, Jacob Zinn, Holly Page, Nikki Morley, Ethan Ferguson, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Barbara Bennett, Ken Tryon, Marianne Rossi, Ann Yoshioka, Kristen Dickey, Jake Cash, April Taylor, Daniel Cohen, Kelly Plowy, Rowena White, Zach Poe, Crystal Chapman, Jamie Chavez, Kristen Khalil, Maddie Patz, Jennifer Zune, Becca Robinson, Strix, Michael Sebastian, Melissa Kinney, Rick Schwartz, Sierra Bowen, Stephen Rossi, Sam Evans, Chris Infield, Nicole Lee, and Michaela Baratka. Don't forget to go and vote for Dolly with the Lehigh Valley Zoo. And yeah, with all of that said, I'll be back here on Tuesday with a brand new interview episode. And until then, remember, friends, the words Newsy credits backwards are Steiderk Yiswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. We contributed to Zoo News.